Hello, everyone. We are a mining consultancy that has provided independent professional advice to mining companies, providers of capital, law firms, and government agencies for over 35 years. Staffed by senior mineral industry consultants with extensive international experience, we are here to discuss relevant topics for the benefit of our mineral industry followers. And now, here is your host, Senior Mining Engineer, Alan San Martin.
Hello, everyone. I am Alan San Martin, your host at the Micron Insights. Welcome to our podcast. Before we begin, this is our sustainability statement. At Micron, we work with our clients to promote responsible mining and to integrate the principles of sustainability into their mining projects. The topic for today is, do you have a measured or indicated mineral resource? I'm here today with my co-host and colleague, William Lewis. Bill is the principal geologist at Micron, joining us from the Toronto office. Hello, Bill. How are you?
I'm good. Alan, yourself?
I'm good, thanks. I'm happy you're back to discuss about this topic. This is so important in our job. What is a mineral resource, Bill?
Well, Alan, the strict definition of a mineral resource is a concentration or occurrence of solid material of economic interest in or on the Earth's crust in such form, grade, quantity, and quality that there are reasonable prospects for eventual economic extraction. And that's right from the CIM definitions.
Yes. So now, when you have a resource, there are categories of confidence that we call measure, indicated, and infer. So what is a measure or indicated mineral resource?
Well, I'll start with an indicated resource because that's sort of the second tier in the three-tier system. So you start off with inferred resources, then you have indicated resources, and then the top is measured. So I'll start with the indicated mineral resource. So an indicated mineral resource is you have your resource is of the quantity, grade, quality, density, shape, physical characteristics that are estimated with sufficient confidence to allow the application of modifying factors. Now, the modifying factors are used by mining engineers to bring that into a reserve from a resource. So we won't discuss them here, but it's the application of modifying factors in indicated and measured that allows them to become reserves. Now, the physical shapes, characteristics, quality of the mineralization, grade has to be in sufficient detail to support mine planning and evaluation of the economic viability of the deposit. That's where the modifying factors come in. And indicated resources have a lower confidence than measured resources. The geological evidence for a measured resource is derived from, detailed, reliable exploration sampling, testing, and is sufficient to confirm the geological grade or quantity and grade quality and continuity between various points of observation. So that's a measured, and in indicated, it's sufficient to assume the geological grade or quality continuity between points of the various points of observation. So whether they're drill holes, whether they're trench sampling, whether they're samples on underground workings, that's the sampling derived from that will define your resources.
So in essence, the categories of indicated and measured is when you are looking to advance your study from a first resource into PEA, into pre-feas and feasibility, because you need them in order to convert into probable and proven reserves when you go into mining.
Yeah, so
right?
So you know, once you've done sufficient exploration, whether that's drilling, and usually that's diamond drilling or river circulation. Could be surface sampling, surface trenching. It could be sampling and drilling from underground or an open pit in the case of properties that have previous workings on them. So the spacing for measured and indicated resources have to, or the sampling for those needs to be sufficient that you can either confirm the continuity and the grade, or assume that the continuity and grade are continuous. In
Okay.
other words, for a indicated resource, you might put a drill hole in there and might have 10 to 20% difference where in grade. Whereas for a measured resource, you probably 5, maybe 10% at the very outside. But you for a measured resource, it's the predictability that's key. Same as for an indicated resource.
Okay. So when do you need to have these categories of
Well,
resources?
measured and indicated, really you need to have them if you want to do a pre-feasibility or a feasibility study. They're pretty much must-haves, because the only way you can declare reserves is to have measured or indicated resources. So typically measured resources become proven reserves, and uh, you know indicated resources become probable reserves. And those are the pre-feasibility or the feasibility study is the first time in any economic studies that you can actually declare reserves.
So now, talking about our own practice at Mycon, what is the way that Mycon achieve this measure and indicator mineral resource in any assignment or study?
Well, that's going to depend on the information we're provided. It's going to depend on the deposit type, because an epithermal deposit will have different spacing requirements from, say, a porphyry deposit or a
Like
sedimentary
chromite.
deposit. Yeah, the or so the normally what we do is we look at the database. We will do variography to see what the spacing between data points are and that can involve spacing between trenches and drill holes and underground workings. But generally, the closer spaced um, sampling points will translate into a higher categorization. For instance, you might be drilling on 200-meter centers. Well, that might be very good for an industrial mineral, such as, say, dolomite or something like that. But it's
Yeah.
certainly not going to be sufficient for a measured or indicated resource in, say, an epithermal gold or silver deposit.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's the spacing and the variography, and then also to make sure that we, you know, generally for measured, which is the higher classification, is you want to be sufficiently convinced that if you were going to go and put a drill hole or a sample point between the two sample points you're using, or 3 or 4 sample points you're using for a measured resource, you're going to get what you predict. So say you have 2 blocks and there's with drill holes between them, and you've got 1 or 2 blocks between those separating them. For a measured, you want to be able to categorically state that if I drilled a drill hole between those 2 points, I would get the grade that's predicted in those blocks.
So that's the level of confidence that the QP has to categorize that resource.
Yes. Yeah. Now, if you're hesitant about the fact that you're going to get that continuity of grade, well, maybe it's not measured, maybe it's indicated. Yeah. But because you've assumed that block that's going to be between those 2 points is going to be of that grade. Now, if you drill there and you get a 60-70% difference, well, obviously it's not either measured or indicated. But if you drilled in between those points and you got a, say, in my own thinking, between a 10 and 20% difference, you probably could put that in the indicated category, because you've assumed that the grade is there. Yes, there's grade there, but it's 10 to 20% difference.
So for our audience that are listening right now, what is the word of advice from Micon in order to achieve measure indicated? And in any case, if they need to have measure necessarily.
Yeah, okay, I guess I'll address your last one first, in that, exploration and the acquisition of the sampling data, whether it's drill holes, whether it's trenching, is an expensive process, especially when it comes to drilling. So my own word of advice to most clients would be that, do the exploration work and drilling, underground sampling if you need to get it to an indicated category. You don't necessarily have to go out and drill 30%, 40% of the deposit to a measured category, but you would like to get it to an indicated category, because if you're going to go to a pre-feasibility, that'll get translated, provided it meets the requirements of the modifying factors, to translate resources to reserves. That will get you probable reserves. So my advice to clients is, do your work and do it to sufficient detail that you can at least get indicated resources. It's only when you come to do a feasibility study that you want to have probably 30% maybe into the proven category. So you can do more work, exploration, when you're trying to go from that pre-feasibility to feasibility study. And the reason for that is because most institutions that will lend our clients money, banks, any type of financial institution, will usually want to see proven reserves for at least the first 2 years of production.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a de-risk of the providers of capital. They want to see measure at least a portion of the deposit.
Yes, yeah. And it is for that reason of de-risking their they're lending you, that 100 million or 200 million or 300 million dollars that you're going to need to put the mine into production or more.
Right.
So they would like to see that, the first 2, maybe even 3 in some cases, years of payback is covered by proven reserves as opposed to probable reserves.
Okay.
So, my in the early stages, do your drilling, get inferred resources. You can do a PEA with inferred resources. Get some areas indicated. For instance, if you have you're going to be doing an open pit and you have the mineralization outcropping and you have some high grade on close to surface where you'd potentially put a starter pit, I would probably try and upgrade that to an indicated resource for a PEA. But realistically, everything else can be in the inferred category.
All right, Bill. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
You're very welcome, Alan.
Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave us your comments or questions, and be sure to follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter so you are kept informed on future episodes.